Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like certain people, toxic people, manipulative people, people who drained everything out of you, somehow always seemed to find you? Like no matter what you did, no matter how careful you were, you kept ending up in the same situations with the same type of person. And you started wondering, is something wrong with me? Why does this keep happening? Here's the thing, most people never get told. Narcissists don't pick their targets randomly. There is no luck involved, no coincidence. What looks like a random connection is actually the result of a very specific, very calculated selection process, and most victims never see it coming because they don't know what narcissists are actually looking for. By the end of this video, you will. And once you understand how this selection process works, you will never be an easy target again. What is a narcissist, really? Before we get into how they pick you, we need to be clear about what we're actually talking about. Because the word narcissist gets thrown around a lot. Your coworker who talks too much, your ex who never apologized. People call everyone a narcissist these days. But clinical narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, is something specific. And even people who don't have the full clinical diagnosis can operate with narcissistic patterns that cause real damage. What defines a narcissist at the core is this: an almost total inability to genuinely care about another person's feelings, combined with an intense need for admiration, control, and supply. That word supply is important. Narcissists don't see relationships the way you do. You see a relationship as a connection. They see it as a transaction. You are a source of attention, validation, emotional energy, status, or resources. And the moment you stop providing that supply, the relationship is over, at least in their mind. Now here's where it gets disturbing, because if you are a source, a supply, then the narcissist's job is to find the best possible source, the highest quality supply, and they are extremely good at that job. Research from psychologists including Dr. Ramani Durvazula and studies published in the Journal of Personality Disorders show that narcissists are highly skilled at reading people, particularly at identifying specific emotional and psychological form traits that make someone easy to extract from. So the question is, what are those traits? What are they actually looking for? Let's go through them one by one. Trait 1, high empathy. The first thing narcissists look for, and this one is going to sting a little, is high empathy. Yes, one of your best qualities. Your ability to feel what other people feel. Your instinct to be kind, to give people the benefit of the doubt, to try to understand where someone is coming from. That is exactly what makes you a target. Think about why that makes sense from the narcissist's perspective. A highly empathetic person will work harder to maintain a relationship. They'll forgive more. They'll blame themselves first before they blame the other person. When a narcissist hurts them, they'll spend hours, sometimes years, trying to figure out what they did wrong, what they could have done differently, how they can fix things. The narcissist doesn't have to do any of that emotional work. The empathetic person does it all for them. There's also something called the empathy trap. This is when a narcissist presents themselves as wounded, as someone who had a terrible childhood, a string of people who hurt them, a life full of injustice. And the empathetic person hears this and thinks, I can be different. I can be the one who finally treats them right. I can heal this person. That instinct is beautiful. It comes from a genuine place. But to a narcissist, it is an open door. Dr. Judith Orloff, author of the Empath Survival Guide, describes this as the narcissist-empath dynamic, one of the most common and most damaging relationship patterns in psychology. The narcissist provides the wound. The empath provides the cure. The narcissist takes the cure and then creates a new wound. The cycle repeats, and the empath stays because leaving feels like abandoning someone who is suffering. If you have been told you are too sensitive, too caring, that you feel everything too deeply, pay attention. That's not a flaw, but it is something narcissists specifically scout for. Trait 2, low self-worth or uncertain identity. The second trait narcissists look for is low self-worth, or more specifically, an uncertain sense of identity. People who aren't completely sure of who they are. People who are still figuring themselves out. People who have a quiet voice in the back of their head that asks, am I enough? Now, that describes most human beings at some point in their lives. And that's exactly the point. Narcissists are opportunistic. They move toward people in moments of vulnerability. Think about when most toxic relationships start. After a breakup, after a job loss, during a period of transition, a new city, a new school, a new chapter. These are the moments when people are most open because they are most uncertain. And a narcissist in the early stages, what psychologists call the love bombing phase, is extraordinary at filling that uncertainty with certainty. They will tell you exactly who you are. They will make you feel seen in a way you have never felt seen before. They will say things like, "You are unlike anyone I have ever met. I have never felt this way about anyone. You are special." And if you are someone who was not sure of your own worth, if you grew up in a household where love was conditional or inconsistent or had to be earned, that kind of attention hits differently. It doesn't just feel good. It feels like finally. This is not weakness. This is human psychology being exploited with precision. The love bombing phase exists specifically to create dependency before the mask drops. By the time the narcissist reveals their true behavior, the criticism, the control, the coldness, you are already attached. Already convinced that the person you saw at the beginning is the real one, and this current behavior is the exception. It is not. The love bombing was the performance. What came after is the truth. Trait 3. People-pleasing tendencies. Third trait, people-pleasing. People pleasers are, from a narcissist perspective, the ideal supply, because a people pleaser has been conditioned, usually from early in life, to prioritize other people's needs and comfort above their own. They struggle to say no. They feel guilty when they disappoint someone. They often take responsibility for other people's emotions. Do you know how much energy that saves a narcissist? With a people pleaser, the narcissist never has to manage conflict. They never have to worry about boundaries being enforced. They never have to face real consequences for their behavior. Because the people pleaser will absorb it all, will find a way to make it work, will smooth things over, will take the blame, just to keep the peace. And here's the cruel irony. The people pleaser often ends up apologizing to the narcissist for things the narcissist did. People-pleasing usually starts in childhood. If you grew up in an environment where it was not safe to express your needs, where expressing needs led to anger, guilt trips, or emotional withdrawal, you learn to adapt. You learn to read the room. You learn to prioritize everyone else's emotional state because your own safety depended on it. That was survival then. In adulthood, in a relationship with a narcissist, that same survival mechanism becomes a trap. Psychologist Harriet Breaker identified this pattern in her research on people-pleasing, what she called the disease to please. If I was a trap called bedtime, the need for approval becomes so deeply wired that it overrides a person's own judgment, their own needs, and eventually their own reality. Narcissists don't just find people-pleasers attractive. They actively seek them out. Because a person who cannot say no is a person who cannot leave. Trait 4. High achievement or social status. Not every narcissist is looking for someone vulnerable. Some of them are looking for someone powerful. This is the trait that surprises people the most, because the common image of a narcissist target is someone quiet, insecure, easy to control. But some narcissists specifically target high achievers, successful people, people with strong social networks, good reputations, money, or status. Why? Because narcissists need supply, and status is supply. Being with someone successful, attractive, or well-respected feeds the narcissist's ego. It makes them look good. It gives them access to things, social circles, opportunities, resources that they want. This is called the trophy dynamic. The narcissist treats their partner less like a person and more like an object that reflects well on them. High-achieving people often become targets precisely because their success makes them slightly more trusting. They have evidence that they are good at reading situations. They've built something. They've succeeded. So they trust their own judgment. And when they initially judge the narcissist as charming, intelligent, someone worth being with, they commit to that judgment. Narcissists exploit that confidence. They present themselves as equals, as people on the same level, and then slowly reframe the relationship. Whether you are high-achieving or quietly struggling, narcissists find a way in. The entry point is just different. The selection process, how they actually do it. Now that you understand what they're looking for, let's talk about how they actually identify it, because this is where it gets deeply unsettling. Narcissists are, on average, highly skilled at what psychologists call rapid personality assessment. In a short amount of time, sometimes a single conversation, they can pick up on signals that most people would never notice. Here is what they are actually reading: your eye contact. People with high empathy and people-pleasing tendencies tend to maintain more eye contact, nod more, and mirror the other person's energy more readily. To a narcissist, this reads as, "This person is paying attention to me. This person is already adjusting to me. Good. How you talk about other people." In early conversations, narcissists will listen carefully to how you speak about people who have hurt you. If you consistently take the other person's side, if you say things like, "I'm sure they didn't mean it that way," or "I probably overreacted," the narcissist registers this. A person who self-blames is a person who will self-blame in this relationship too. How you respond to small tests. This is the most calculated part. Early on, a narcissist will run what can only be described as small tests. A moment of mild rudeness to see how you respond. A small boundary push. A minor disrespect. If you laugh it off, if you don't address it, they log that information. This person tolerates boundary violations. Let's see how far this goes. Your relationship history. Narcissists ask a lot of questions early on, and they listen carefully to the answers. If you describe a pattern of difficult relationships, if you talk about giving a lot and receiving little, if you describe yourself as someone who struggles to walk away, you had essentially handed them your psychological blueprint. They are not asking because they care. They are asking because they are building a profile. This is not paranoia. This is documented behavior, consistent across clinical research and survivor accounts. The early stage of a relationship with a narcissist often feels like the most intense, connected, understood you have ever felt with another person. That feeling is manufactured. It is the product of someone who has studied you and is now reflecting back exactly what you want to see. Why knowing this protects you? Here is what I want you to understand. Everything we have talked about, the empathy, the people-pleasing, the uncertain sense of self, none of it is a character flaw. These are traits that in healthy relationships are enormous strengths. Empathy creates deep connection. The desire to make people happy creates warmth and generosity. A willingness to look inward creates growth. The problem is not who you are. The problem is that these traits, without boundaries, without self-awareness, become exploitable. And the most powerful thing you can do is know that, because narcissists rely on you not knowing. The entire system depends on you not seeing the pattern, on you blaming yourself instead of recognizing the manipulation, on you believing that if you just tried harder, loved better, communicated more clearly, things would be different. They wouldn't. That is by design. So what changes when you know this? You start to notice the tests. You start to feel the love bombing for what it is instead of just enjoying it. You start to hear the questions differently. You start to notice the early moments where someone pushes slightly past a line, and instead of laughing it off, you pay attention. You don't become cold. You don't become suspicious of everyone. You become informed. And informed people are not easy targets. How to protect yourself. 3 practical things. Let me leave you with 3 things that actually work. 1. Build what therapists call a secure sense of self. This does not mean being arrogant or closed off. It means knowing your own values clearly enough that when someone tries to redefine them for you, you notice. Narcissists cannot easily manipulate someone who knows exactly who they are because there is no uncertainty to fill, no empty space to move into. 2. Watch behavior, not words. Always. The love bombing phase is all words. Words are easy. What does this person actually do? How do they respond when you express a need? How do they handle a moment when you disagree with them? How do they talk about people who are no longer useful to them? Behavior is data. Words are performance. 3. Notice how you feel after spending time with someone. This sounds simple, but it is one of the most reliable early warning systems available to you. After spending time with a healthy person, even if the conversation was difficult or deep, you generally feel okay. After spending time with a narcissist, even if the conversation felt exciting and intense, there is often a strange, subtle drain, a feeling that something was slightly off, that you gave more than you received, that you left feeling slightly worse about yourself than when you arrived. Trust that feeling. It is your nervous system doing its job. Narcissists pick you because you have things worth taking: kindness, empathy, loyalty, strength. The very things that make you valuable in healthy relationships make you visible to people who want to exploit them. That is not your fault, and it is not permanent. The moment you understand how the selection process works, the moment you can see it clearly, is the moment it stops working on you. If this video made you think of someone in your life or a situation you've been in, drop it in the comments. I read them, and I'll see you in the next one.